not need, ciao, nice to meet you. I did not need an official glorification of me. I just wanted you to understand that Silvana has recently learned English, and sometimes she might need some help from me. That's all.
Not only in English.
Yeah, of course, of course.
Okay.
I'm grateful to you for being available.
No,
Yeah.
no, I'm also interested in a topic because I'm a feminist. Yeah.
Oh, good. The best husbands are.
Yes, you have to know that I am originally from Italy. I went for my studies in sociology in Belgium at the Leuven University. And for that, I was very close to the reality of the Beguine movement, because except Amsterdam and Breda, the two towns where Beguinage are still existing, there are no other countries in Europe where the memories can be found. So I was a sort of privileged situation. Now my husband and I were retired. My husband is a professor in peace studies. He has he has a website also, and you can inform it. So now we are going to your precise question.
Yeah, let me say also that I watched the little documentary film that was the English version. I downloaded the ebook of it, which I'm reading, and I watched the video for it, which was so helpful to me. It was really condensed so much of the information that I was looking for, and I've read some of it elsewhere, but it came in very handy, and I was scribbling notes the whole time. So thank you for your work, for doing that. And your website is so helpful, and I'm just so grateful to your passion for the subject and how you've documented it in so many ways.
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you. If you need the English text of the DVD, I can send you the English text, so you have not two copies. And
okay, sure. Yeah, that would be very helpful, because some of the pronunciations I was just guessing.
Of course. No, I will send it just after our conversation. I have anyway a question before to you. Because I have not really understood what kind of writing are you prepared? Is a fiction? Is an history?
You prepare.
You prepare, yes.
Yeah.
Prepare. You are preparing.
Yeah.
And what really do you want to with this? Because after that, it help me. It will help me also for answering to your questions.
So I'm a university professor here at the University of Iowa in the United States, and I teach creative writing, and I also write what we call here creative nonfiction, which basically means it's a combination of memoir and scholarship and journalistic writing and historical writing, and I sort of weave all of those together. And so this is specifically for a book, my next book, which will be my 5th book, and it's about female celibacy. And the way I'm looking at it is in thinking about, I spent a year intentionally celibate, and it was one of the most wonderful years of my life. And so I started researching all of these women throughout history who were celibate, who seemed to have created lives that were freer than most women during their time were able to live. And it seemed that the thing they all had in common was celibacy. And the Beguines seemed like the best example of this, because they were living sort of according to like what, centuries later you would call feminist principles, but they were also spiritual principles. And for me, the experience was very spiritual. It was political. I did a lot of service during that year. And I had a lot of really deep companionship with my friends and other women and other people. And so I'm looking into all sorts of celibate women, which means a lot of nuns. But the Beguines, because they're independent of the church in a particular kind of way, and because they lived communally and had so much freedom to sort of organize their time the way they wanted and design their communities the way they wanted, they're the most interesting to me. And so in the fall, I have I'm going to do some research, and I'm going to Amsterdam and Brussels, Leuven, Ghent, and Berlin. And I'm going to try to interview people and go to some of the Beguinage. And I'd be very grateful for any recommendations that you have of places to see or people to speak to. You've already made some great book recommendations. I ordered the book that you recommended. So it feels like you've already been down that path of sort of looking into the way they lived and thinking about how it might reflect on the ways that we live now. And so you seem like such a good resource.
For answering to your question, Melissa, I have to precise a terminology before that, because there is of course, when we speak about the celibacy of Beguines, of course, is a voluntary, chosen and dedicated to the spiritual life. Okay, so we have in the vocabulary two terms for it: celibacy and chastity.
Okay.
You know, celibacy in our languages, yeah, in English also, yeah, in Italy, in French, probably in English also. Celibacy means persons who is not married, and probably they have a partner, but they are not married. So that is a celibacy. Okay. When we speak about consecrated life, where the sexual relations are transferred in the other field, we prefer to speak about chastity. Of course, there is, and when you have, if you will meet consecrated persons in Europe, you will learn that when they become consecrated, they generally give 3 vows: obedience, poverty, and chastity, not celibacy, because celibacy, so we have to be clear.
That's helpful.
So that is important to understand each other. So what happens with the Beguines? The Beguines were, and we are now assured about it, was a movement that belongs in the period where they were really thirsty of God. Some medievalist historian says it was the second evangelization of Europe, because everywhere there was a very important research about spirituality. At this moment, there was, for persons before this period, for persons who really would to live a profound, deep way of spirituality, there was the monasteries, either for men and for way of life. So what happens? These women want to do a more intensive spiritual life, but in this period,
to experience
a deeper spiritual life. Some persons told, some historian says, they preferred spiritual marriage to the historical marriage. Why? Because they probably felt this trust of God, and at the same time, in this period, marriage was not a question of love, it was a question of families' convenience, opportunities, arrangements, and
among the noble was also a politics.
It was a politics, and for the lay people not rich, it was really impossible. Why? Because for going in the monastery, to access in the monastery, the women, as they didn't work, as they cannot go out from the monastery, they have to come to try to bring land or money to the monastery for giving a contemplative life.
A dowry.
A dowry. So we call that. So what happens in this moment where there was not enough places in monasteries, because we don't build a monasteries in 1 year. Yes, and you need a lot of money for this. So there was scarcity of places. Lay peoples not so rich couldn't go in. There was a certain discredito. It was prejudice against church institution, because the examples were more negative than positive. Okay. So in this rushing of a fever, of God's fever, these ladies decided to find a new possibility. But as they want to live, that is very important, because some prejudice from men told, oh, there were ladies that could not marry, so they find this spiritual life. Oh, there was, understand, they like single in all like time. Yes, this
spinsters.
But how do you say? Spinster, yes, that is correct. But there was a very, very important doctoral thesis for Grundmann. You find it on my book also, that he established by historical proofs that these women belongs to this important spiritual movement of this period at the end of 20th centuries and go and straight away. So this desire of a profound spiritual life pushed the Beguines to adopt quite the same how do you say, rule of the monasteries, but independence, because there was a discouraging attitude toward the church, and they wanted to continue their job, because for more of them they have not daughters only for dowry for this. Yes. So for the same reasons, I suppose.
Make a list of what they wanted to be independent from.
Yes, they decide to be obey. They obey to their own rule of their beguinage, the chastity, and not the poverty, but the sobriety. Sobriety, that means just have what you need to live for living, and then to share with the other, the poorest in the beguinage or the poorest out in the town. So for that, they even their houses, they buy the houses when they rent the houses, but they are not owner. At the moment where we live, their houses belongs to the beguinage.
Mm-hmm.
So another difference with the monastic life is that for this new spatial situation, they preferred to have promises and not vows.
Promises, vows, so they can leave and come back. They didn't have, it wasn't for the rest of their lives.
Not forever.
Not forever. Yes, not forever. What I saw that generally when they took this path of life, they generally stay, but they have to renew regularly. I don't know exactly, it depends on the beguinage. Regularly their promises, and if they want to leave, they can leave for either to become nuns in the monasteries. We have quite a lot of beguines. They preferred to access the more contemplative life, either to go out and live probably a married or another in independent way, even to stay connected to the beguinage. In the Aline Kiner fiction, The Beguine's Night, you see around the big Paris beguinage, there were different ladies who live out of the beguinage, but were connected to the spiritual life of the beguinage. So that is very, very, why is interesting this this story of women. It is very interesting because we can say it with very nice sentences that is in a chart of the Bruges beguinage, that is they were looking for sanctification in the freedom, within freedom. What that means? That means that you are going, of course, every one of them has a spiritual father or mother, more father than mother this town, but they have a personal path for access to the one. And for that, I think they are a proposal today for people, women who wants to go to walk on this way. So
can you say they want to be free from men?
They want to see
free from men, because within the rule of
beguinage.
The beguinage, there were rules established by ladies, and they respected it. They wanted to free from a husband, a religious institution, a priest, a bishop, a pope, or whatever.
Yes, but there were not especially in conflict, not everyone, the majority, and also because they have to survive after. Yes, they try to escape the condition, but they have to manage with them also, because there is a question of life. They've been very repressed during the history. You will find all this information in my book. So
they're considered suspicious by the church.
Yes, because they use vernacular language to access, to share the scriptures to the people. They write in vernacular language. They preach also, and they were really a strong solidarity communities in the different places where they live.
So using vernacular language at that time was the most revolutionary act that they could do.
Yes.
Because that means people could understand everything they're saying. When they were going to church, they didn't understand a thing. Speaking
So
in
it sort of
Latin.
kept spirituality cloistered and for sort of elite people, or just for holy people, and they were actually giving access to everyday people.
Everybody. It's very revolutionary and dangerous for the institutions.
Yes, and controlled. That was unacceptable for the institution. They were too much uncontrolled. So, do you think we have answered to your question, Melissa? Yeah, you can. Of course, Melissa. Today is a beginning of your book, your study. If you need in some few months to have another.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I'm so grateful to you for.
No, you don't. No, we are.
I know that I'll have more questions when I travel and as I get into it more.
Yeah. When you come back from Europe in the States, if you need, we can have another conversation and precise better some things. Is it a good way, the chastity? Is it the chastity the good way to access to the deeper spirituality? That is a big question. That is a bigger question.
Yeah, I'm very curious about those connections, and really also about the way that chastity and even more so how by making that promise, or for some other nuns taking that vow, it meant that they could, preach in vernacular language and write, and they could live separately, and they didn't have to marry, and they had all of how it was this kind of key to a different kind of life where they could be artists and preachers and even politicians, and how all of those things can sort of be entwined. But at least socially in history, that vow of chastity and devotion was a prerequisite. It was mandatory for them to be able to choose a different kind of life. Are there books or people or places that you have traveled that have been?
Yeah. I already suggested to you a book recently about Adewale.
I ordered it.
You ordered. I think it's very interesting to you too, because Adewale is very modern poetry, and you feel the deeper of a spiritual love with integrated all the sensuality of the life, not sexuality in meaning in the relation, sex relation, but sensuality, that all the fashion, that you can feel this presence. Of course, Melissa, I think it's very difficult also for me to really understand how we can get it, because we have to live in a certain way to get it. But we can trust to these persons. I knew a lot of monastic women that really was joyful, thriving, realizzate. thriving in their wife, and so is I think is a call, is a vocation, is a calling, is a call of God. If you have not this special call, it's not possible, because we are women. We know you certainly have more experience than me, but we know what kind of egotic appropriation of the other person can be what we call love. You know. Yes,
yeah, it's a big part of why I want to write about it too, and I'm interested.
Yeah.
And that's the characteristic of mystical religion, not formal ritualistic one. Mystical is that you can reach height of connection with, especially with Jesus. With God is more difficult because it's a mystery God. But Jesus was a person, and he's been loved by women. Jesus, surely loved in a sense they were attracted to him. At least one. You see. And the other thing, may I add, I don't want to interfere too much, the concept of independence for them was so important, has to be interpreted in professional terms as well, because they were working outside the beguinage. We have a record of them working in a tissue industry.
Agriculture.
And for me, I'm a medical historian, they were the first one to assist patients, voluntary assistance of patients.
Yeah, and I learned that in the video. And one of the things I also read was that that when they were, or maybe this was in that documentary too, that when the church came and did shut them down, they forbid some of them from ever working again, and they weren't allowed to enter into other professions, right? I saw it's kind of a punishment for having exercised that independence to keep.
You know who helped the Begin at that point? They were the civil authority of that city. They recognized that their work was so useful, so had such a big impact in the economy of a town. Then they defended them Begin on that side of church oppression.
That makes sense.
So I was so interesting because I felt on them the root of my history, the root of feminism. They were not feminist, but they put the first step of independence. And during this year, I felt they were not enough known and valorized. I felt the importance to rehabilitate their history. Are you satisfied?
I am. I so appreciate it. And just so you know, I'm not traveling until later September. So there's no hurry. I know that's a lot of things to type up, and I really appreciate it. I'm so grateful that I found you and your work, and that you took the time to type it all up and put it on your blog and to write your book. And I'm so appreciative. You've done really.
We are at your service. We are at your service. I think you can do a very important writing, because you know a lot of things. You are a person who, excuse me if I tell it, and you can correct me. I think you are a person, you are looking for a deep love. And is it right, Melissa?
That's right.
Yeah, it's great. I think I feel it. So we wish you to find a lot of indication on this path. You can count on us, Piero and me, when you want. And thank you for your project, your time, your presence.
Thank you
Good
so
luck.
much. And I'll send you the video and the transcript when
Thank you
I
so
have
much.
them. Thank you so much. Thank you for your translation support, Piero. Also for your scholarship. I'm very grateful.
Thank you.
You.